Hello, hello. What's up? What's up? It is a new day, it is a new week, and it's time to get social. My name is KaVonna, and welcome to the Introvert's Social Hour. Hello, hello. What's up? What's up? Welcome to the Introvert Social Hour. Today we are talking about Love is Blind season 6. If you are someone who watches Love is Blind season 6, you already know where we're going to be going over today. It's a recap of everything, including the reunion. We waited to record it until the reunion came through. So if you don't watch Love is Blind and you just wanted the recap, this is for you also. Y'all know I only pretty much watch Love is Blind as far as reality TV goes, but my mom watches a lot of reality TV in addition to Love is Blind. I got her onto Love is Blind. So, I'm welcoming my mom on today. We're gonna talk about Love is Blind together. So, hello. Welcome, welcome.
Hello. I'm ready
Uh,
to talk.
yeah, she literally just finished the reunion, so it's fresh in her brain as we
I have
speak.
things to say.
Yes, I bet because there's a lot to go over. We're gonna go over we're gonna go over like from top to bottom though first. So like from the
Okay.
pods to like the reveals after the pods, them being in the Dominican Republic for their vacation, into them going into their apartments, etc. And then we're gonna end with the weddings and the reunion. Um,
Okay.
so first off, with the pods, we had a few people highlighted. Um, so we had
Mhm.
AD, and her potential suitors were Clay and Matthew. You
Mhm.
remember Matthew,
Mhm.
and then we had Jimmy, and that was an interesting kind of like square because it was Jimmy who was interested in Chelsea and Jessica. Chelsea was also interested in Trevor, and then we had Kenneth and Brittany,
Mhm.
who were pretty much like that. They were just together. Amy and Johnny as well. They were pretty much like one to one with each other. Then we had Jeremy, who was interested in Laura, and Sarah Ann. What were your initial reactions to like those groupings that we had? And then I have my opinions too.
So, I really like Trevor. This may be a little spoiler because I just finished watching a reunion. So, I like
Mm.
Trevor until I saw the reunion, but I'm just going to leave that right there until later on.
Okay.
Um, I like AD. I think everybody likes AD.
Yeah.
I really don't like the fact, or didn't like the fact, I guess I should say, that in the pod, to me, it felt like she thought she was going to be able to change Clay.
Hmm.
You know, she seems like she has a genuine heart. I'm glad she didn't end up with what was his name,
Matthew.
Matthew. Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
glad she didn't end up with him because how you gonna tell the same two people the same story? Like you got to switch up your game at some point. Like you
Yeah.
can't just read the same line. So that's when it comes to them. Um, when it came to who am I missing?
Jimmy,
Oh,
Jeremy, Amy, John,
no, Jeremy and what was her name?
Laura,
Susie Ann.
Sarah Ann,
Laura.
Susie Ann.
I have all of this in my mind from the reunion. I'm 100% glad that Laura did end up with him. I don't feel like he was genuine. After watching the reunion again, I'm skipping ahead. I feel like I like Laura more than I did, during the season. So, I hope whoever she's dating, since she's dating, is good. Um, I guess you know what too. Let me say this. Everyone has been so hard on what's her name? Susie Ann?
Sarah
I can't think of her name.
Ann.
Sarah Ann. I don't know. I know her name, but okay. Everyone's being so hard on her, but I think people have to realize also that she still had feelings for him, even though he was, moved on and proposed. It was kind of like this drop of, anybody. You're dating two people, um, or you're dating several people. One person gets picked, it's not you. What do you do with all of those feelings? Even for Jessica too. Luckily she's friends with all of them now, but it's like what do you
Mhm.
do with those leftover feelings?
But do
I'm
you think she
surprised
handled
though.
it right though? Like the way she
Who?
handled it, the
Sarah Ann?
Sarah Ann, yeah,
No, she absolutely did not handle it right.
yeah, because
If
like,
she was in Laura's face, told her like, "Hey, girl, this," and she had an ulterior motive. Even when she said she sent that text message,
mhm,
and the text message said, whatever it said, I can't remember verbatim, but you heard her say, "Well, he
mhm.
wasn't married yet, so if it was still a possibility." No, you had an
No, yeah,
ulterior motive, but you all
hmm
up in her face. No, she
hmm
didn't handle it right.
yeah. So that's why I say like, yes, the feelings I understand, but she can't validate for me. She can't validate her sending that message, and it was an Instagram DM. She can't validate it because of what she said. She's like, if you're ever thinking of, a possibility and it doesn't work out, like I'm still here. It was like, no, you shouldn't have messaged that out. Um, and we'll talk more because she just got worse and worse throughout the season.
Yeah,
It got
I
bad.
agree with you on that. She can't validate it. I feel like you knew you're going on a show. You know when you make yourself open and vulnerable to catching feelings, that those feelings may not be reciprocated. I don't feel like she should have went behind Laura's back. Yes,
Mhm.
it's not a good feeling to be hurt for all of the people, including Jessica, that got hurt. But you don't go look at her and Megan Fox. They friends,
Chelsea, yeah.
Chelsea. They're friends. That's
Yeah.
good. It may not be, Chelsea may have her own issues, like she said, her insecurities because of her own insecurities. We all have them.
Mhm.
But they were still able to work as friends. And I feel like that Sarah Ann had the possibility to do that with Laura. And she did some snaky type of stuff. And she just got to live with it. And the internet is cruel. The internet, social media is it's cruel. So
Yeah.
hopefully she's through all of this negativity because, you know,
Yeah. I mean, I don't
yeah.
think the reunion helped her case. So they're probably still gonna be going at her for a minute now still. Um, we had yeah, Jeremy ended up choosing Laura. And then with Jimmy, Chelsea, Jessica, just to like recap for people who don't know, Jimmy ended up choosing Chelsea and saying no to Jessica. But even though Jimmy chose Chelsea, Chelsea still had to figure out if she wanted Jimmy or Trevor. She ended up going with Jimmy. And it ended up being Trevor did ask her. He was like, "Well, if I would have asked first, would you said yes to me?" And she didn't answer, but by her not answering, pretty much was like a yes on that end of like she ended up choosing Jimmy because he asked her first. And so Jimmy and Chelsea make it past to the reveal. Jeremy and Laura make it past to the reveal. AD ends up choosing Clay. But like you said, it was very much like she thought she could like change him or like, put some
Right.
healing in vibes. Because it was very obvious. The first time he was like, "Oh, well, I'm like, what do you look like?" Basically trying to like figure out what she
Hmm.
looks like. And she was like, "No, I'm not doing that." Oddly enough, she was
Exactly.
interested in Matthew. And everyone was like, "What? You're interested in Matthew?" Because Matthew definitely got immediately gave off this very strange, like very like he's very specific. He was mad that people were talking about their feelings on a show that's called Love is Blind. I don't know who he left. I can't remember. He was talking to somebody in the pods and they immediately brought up like feelings and like the future and he walked out without saying bye or
I
anything.
remember that. And she was like,
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah. He just left. So, but what ended up messing it up for Matthew was the fact that he said the same thing to Amber, who it was in AD, whose name is also Amber, which I
Right.
ended up finding out throughout the time because they'd be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, Amber," and I was like, "Who's Amber?" Oh, I was like, "Oh, that's AD." Okay. But yeah, so she ended up choosing Clay. I think she ended up choosing Clay because that was just the other option. I think she knew it wasn't the best option, but I think she just tried to, you know, keep going with give it a possibility and keep going with
Hmm.
the experiment. And then we get Kenneth and Brittany and then Amy and Johnny who make it through. The reveals, were there any couples that were revealed that you felt like weren't vibing with each other when they first saw each other?
Of course. Chelsea and Jimmy.
Yeah,
I felt like that was the oddest reveal, but I do feel like from Chelsea's side, it was genuine. She was
yeah,
like running, like doop doop doop, like
she
here I
was.
come, and like of course, how could he not open arms when someone is running to you? But
Hmm.
I think he had the Megan Fox picture in her head. And she does resemble the younger back in the day Megan Fox. She has some resemblance. Not Megan Fox
Mhm.
is who she is in 2024. She has
Yeah.
resemblance to the natural, no surgery, no, Megan Fox. So,
Hmm.
um, who else? I feel like Clay and AD, that reveal was fine, but I feel like in his head, of course, he was stuck on what does she look like. But when she came out, snatched with her, her shape and she's toned and she's very pretty, I
Hmm.
feel like he was like, okay. I don't still know, even though she's very beautiful, I don't know if she's still his normal, so to speak.
Yeah, I
No,
agree.
I don't know if she's Clay's normal. And then who else? Um, Kenneth and Brittany.
Brittany. Yeah.
I
Theirs
don't
was cute.
know.
It looked like they were happy to see each other, but it definitely gave like it was very friendly, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like when I watched it, I was like, I think they're gonna make I at least thought they were gonna make it to the altar, whether they said yes or no. But at that time when I watched it, I was like, oh, they're cute. Like, they might work. So then we also have Amy and Johnny. I thought theirs was really cute. Like they were immediately like impressed with each other and just instantly kind of vibed and clicked. That's how it was for the whole entire season with them, to be honest.
Yeah, they were just like, you're my person and that's it. Like, there's
Hmm.
nothing left to say. Show
Yeah.
over.
They didn't have no issues or anything. Did you think Jeremy and Laura instantly clicked? Do you remember theirs?
So here, let me just be honest. I never really cared for Jeremy, even in the pod. And
Yeah.
this may be weird. So now I've seen another side of Trevor. But
Hmm.
before that, I was like, Laura and Trevor would be great together, especially
Really?
I thought in my little 2 cents,
Okay.
because I was so mad at Chelsea for just ditching out on Trevor. Then I was
Mhm.
like, he could have been with Laura and Jeremy could have been on his own. I don't know. I just
Mhm.
never got a good vibe from him. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe I'm reading him wrong. I don't know. But I just never got a good vibe from him. So I was actually surprised.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I actually feel like what's Sarah Ann? I feel like
Mhm.
she's kind of settling
Mhm.
too,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we'll kind of move on to what happened, the rollout. So we had the pods, they chose their people, we had the reveal, and then when we really start to see couples kind of fall or like where their paths may go, is when they have their vacation trip after the pods and they get to actually like live with each other for a little bit. Still on vacation, so it's not like real life yet, but they get to like actually experience each other in person. So this season they went to the Dominican Republic. Past seasons they've been to like Mexico and stuff. Um, we start to
Hmm.
see Chelsea's insecurities pop out a lot. Um, they all meet each other in person. All the couples meet each other in person. So we start to see how those dynamics happen. Um, I wanted to bring up how one of the biggest situations that happened was there was a lot of constant talk of people talking about like 80s body, which was so interesting to me.
Hmm.
So one of the biggest ones that tied in with like Chelsea and Jimmy was Jimmy had mentioned at some point like, oh, Chelsea, like AD's body or something, like he was talking about her body.
Yeah.
Chelsea did, obviously didn't vibe with that, but then the way she handled it was really interesting because instead of saying like, oh no, that's not cool or whatever, she was like, oh yeah, her body. Oh, hey,
Hmm.
AD, Jimmy said this. And then it created a huge
Which made
awkward
it more
situation.
awkward.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Then Jimmy was like, "Why would you say that?" And then now he's got to go. He's going over there to talk to AD to try to like, kind of like calm the situation and make it not seem so strange. Then Chelsea gets pressed because now Jimmy's talking to AD. And it just became a whole
Hmm.
situation. What did you think about that?
Well,
That was just the beginning.
that was just the beginning. Because he chose her, I feel like she should have went with that and been confident. I'm not saying she wouldn't have had insecurities, but she's around a bunch of women Some are going to be taller, shorter, big boobs, no boobs, big butt, no, but some are going to have the shape, some are not. The thing is to focus on yourself. He chose you, in this case, sight unseen. But when he seen you, he still continued at that point to continue on with things.
Mm-hmm.
That should have been the focus. I think maybe things would have turned out different for them if she would have focused on what they were building versus focusing on what he was doing, because then it went from AD, then she was worried about Jessica, it was just something else, and ultimately it was all surrounded by her own insecurities, which I don't fault her for insecurities, we all have them, but
Mm-hmm.
she may have could have saved the relationship, um if
Yeah.
she would have not so much focused on the other women and things of that sort.
Yeah. No, I agree because then it kept blowing up from there. Eventually she did bring up that she didn't like the way that things rolled out that night. He kind of was like
Mm-hmm.
surprised by it in a way. There was unfortunately the internet was like, dropping it off, like, and saying like she was always saying she felt uncomfy, or she was always saying you made me sad. Like she had a constant frown face. That's what people were saying a lot. And it did seem to be that it was a cycle in their relationship, that it was always like what he was doing was never enough. I do feel like though that she was valid in feeling that way because it was quite obvious that he was trying, but he was not 100% interested. um
Yeah.
not as interested as she was. There was a moment where they had a little argument, even though they didn't want to call them arguments or disagreement. They call them disagreements or conversations. But she had was saying like, "Oh, you don't really say, I love you that much," or just things like that. And he called her clingy, and I knew that was when he messed up. I was like, there was a better way to say that. She was
But he
already
called it
mad.
as he saw it.
Yeah,
She
I
was
know.
kind of clingy.
Yeah, but I was like, he should have said something like a different way because I knew she was gonna blow up the minute he said the word clingy. Like, so then she was like, "You're gonna call me clingy?" Da, 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 da. And that was like their first kind of like big blow up, I feel like, after that. And then there's just more from there. Then we had the weird situation with Jeremy and Laura. Um, Jeremy had told AD, went up to tell AD, he was like, "Oh, Laura told me to bean dip you." I didn't even know what that was at first. I don't if you remember that conversation. Basically, it means to hit a boob, and it was like, why would you? First of all, Laura, why? That was the first question. Um, and then from there was a big conversation. Um, Laura got mad at Jeremy for telling them that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then also Clay was like, "Well, yeah, that made me uncomfortable. Why would you even like tell him to do that? And why would you even bring that up?" And then AD had a conversation with Laura. Laura totally did not understand why that was a problem. It completely went over her head. But the end result of that, interestingly enough, was after they had Jeremy and Laura had a like argument because of that. At the end of it all, Jeremy was the one that ended up apologizing to Laura, when in reality it should have been like the reverse, quite honestly, or they should have
Mm-hmm.
both admitted some faults in that. Um, at that point, I was like on Jeremy's side before he became more of a villain, because I was like, yeah, like Laura, that didn't make any sense. Like he shouldn't have told it. It was just very stupid, basically. The end result of that. Yeah. And then we also have um Clay. He starts mentioning his kind of like idea of not wanting to disappoint AD, and not wanting to be like his father, not want to cheat like his father. That's when the conversations start there. So a lot of the things that we see happen in the Dominican Republic start to roll out in the future into like when they actually go back home to their apartments and things like that. Um, but what else did you notice about like in their time in the Dominican Republic? Any kind of like vibes, their dynamics with each other as couples?
I thought, and maybe I'm kind of oblivious, I thought that Kenneth and Brittany would have made it.
Yeah.
I 100% thought they would have made it. I know he was on his phone and things of that sort, but I kind of thought that their connection that they would have made it. I was surprised to see things go downhill how they went. I also thought, even though I never really cared for him until the night that he decided to stay out, I thought that Jeremy and Laura, excuse me, would have made it also. Though I didn't like him, she saw something in him that obviously me
Was
or
wrong.
hundreds of thousands of other people didn't see. I thought that they would have made it too. So I was surprised that so many people didn't make it. And um I honestly thought Clay and AD were gonna make it. And I'm just basing this all
Oh,
on the interaction when they were in the DR. That's what I'm basing it on.
okay.
Um, it were like little things, they're getting to learn each other, but I thought they
Hmm.
would have made it too. So I don't
Okay.
know.
I mean, I could see that. For me, I was kind of half and half at that point. But I became more half and half because his signs for me saying, ooh, were his like, oh, well, I don't want to disappoint you. Or, my dad cheated on my mom and, he would take me to where he was going to cheat, et cetera, et cetera. He started saying all that stuff and constantly bringing it up. I was like, I don't know. I was like, they'll probably make it to the altar. I don't think he's going to say yes because I don't think he's ready for marriage. Um, Kenneth and Brittany, I thought they would be fine. They did have that awkward boat scene moment. I don't know if you remember. It was a lot of editing that made it feel way more awkward than it was. Because nothing's wrong sitting on a boat and enjoying the view, and just being quiet. But they made it seem really awkward with the editing. But there was that moment that I think they edited it like that so they could start to give you the story of how they eventually do break up, of them not really 100% connecting with each other eventually, and um maybe not having as much chemistry, etc. Um, we move on to the apartments. So now they're not in vacation mode anymore. They're back in the real world. They go back to their jobs, and this is when they start to meet each other's families. Um, I'm gonna throw Johnny and Amy real quick because they're like the easiest couple to talk about because they had the least amount of issues. Um,
Exactly.
I thought their families were very, very welcoming to each other. I thought like everything was really wholesome. Um, they kind of like tried to be like, oh, Amy's dad, if she didn't approve, then she wasn't gonna marry him. But Amy's dad was really cool and smooth about the whole situation. He was very welcoming too. What did you think about like Johnny and Amy's relationship before they hit the wedding dresses and the aisle and all that stuff?
They have, again, on the outside looking in, it seems like their communication flowed, which is something that's super important as anybody in life, but more so in a relationship, marriage, that you have to have like open communication and be able and willing to communicate. So I think that that's why it flowed for them, is
Yeah.
that they had that open line of communication. They just clicked, almost like soulmates. Like they just vibed and was like, "Hey, we're just gonna chill until our wedding day,"
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just seems so flawless. Let me say this. They made it look so flawless. Of course, who
Yeah.
knows behind the scenes, but obviously they were still communicating then, because I don't see her at all marrying him if she was not prepared. I don't see
Mm-hmm.
them marrying each other, just kind of by the way that they come off. So
Yeah.
I believe their communication was everything in the process for them, from what I can see.
Yeah, no, and they said that too, not to jump to the reunion like super quick, but I'll bounce back. They said that in the reunion too, that even now they don't really argue like that. It's a
Hmm.
lot of like because they are super ahead of the communication. So yeah. Um, we go into Clay and AD. Clay continues his self-doubts and talks about his dad cheating again, and his doubts of marriage. Even so, then that was when I was like, well, why are you on a show called Love is Blind where you know you're going to be marrying someone if you're not sure about marriage? He even brings it up to AD, will you be willing to date me if even if I say no at the altar and we don't go to the altar? And she's like, no, like we're either going to the altar or we're not. Like, what are you doing the
Hmm.
show for? What did you think about their families meeting? Like, AD meeting Clay's mom and sister, and then Clay meeting AD's mom.
Um, I like AD's mom too. I feel like she came in strong, tough as a mom in a nurturing way. So when they were sitting down having dinner, and then Clay walked to go get some air or wherever he went, and her mom went around that table and just sat with her and like poured into her and,
Mhm.
gave her that extra boost of encouragement. I really respected that. I feel like both parents, both sets of parents were welcoming to the both of them. I felt so bad. I'm jumping a little bit too, that she was so open to her daughter going through this experience and accepting Clay and pouring into him, and then things turned out how they happened. And I just
Mhm.
love Clay's mom. Like, jumping again to the reunion. I was like, okay, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. No, I think even in the when they first met too, when AD was mentioning like Clay's working all the time. I don't really see him like that. And Clay's mom did say like if you like care about that person enough, you're gonna make the time. So she was on
Mhm.
AD's side, like very obviously. Um, but also like understanding like where Clay was and knowing her son, probably realizing that there were doubts that he had. I will say I liked what 80's mom did too, which was obviously support her daughter, and she obviously liked Clay when she saw him. She's like, "Okay," like, vibing with him.
Mhm.
What made it hard though was when AD mentioned like, "See, you see how he's kind of doubtful, he's kind of not sure of where we are in our relationship." And mom did say, "Well, you just got to try and things like that." The problem that I saw with that was AD had mentioned before that in previous relationships, she was always the person kind of like holding the relationships up, keeping them together, being the healer, all that stuff. So I think at a certain point, that kind of encouragement is no longer helpful, and kind of like being realizing like, hey, like maybe you're repeating again. Like I understand these are your concerns, so just do think about it still. Mom was like, oh no, you got it. Like, just keep going, carrying it through. And it's just like there should have been a little bit more doubt there because we did see what Clay ended up doing in the end. Because of, I mean, he was telling her the answers at the end of the day. He was telling her answer constantly, even though he was there and not there in sometimes, in some cases too. But no, at that time I was like very unsure. I was like, Clay's probably gonna say no though. I was still pretty sure that Clay would say no. I thought AD would. She was a half and half, but I
Mhm.
thought Clay would say no.
Well, I wish he
Um,
would have said no before that. She looked
exactly.
beautiful. And to me,
Mhm.
she looked even more beautiful when she walked away from that altar and her bridal party came with her. I
Yeah,
love, love, love the fact that his mother stood up and embraced her.
and helped her with her
And
dress
then
too.
she continued to walk out of there. I was like, go, AD girl, keep your head up. Go. Her
Hmm.
sisters, her mom, her nieces, everybody came behind her. I love that. But then I don't know if you remember, Clay's mom said, her son was not ready. So I wish he would have told her before, but I'm glad that he didn't go on with it, knowing internally that he was not ready. I feel like
Yeah.
that would have damaged her, scarred her even more.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Um, and then we had Jimmy and Chelsea. Their continued issues. Um, Chelsea continues, unfortunately, being insecure, bringing up different things about the relationship. They meet each other's friends, and they also meet each other's family. What ends up happening here is that the biggest thing, um, they get into an argument over Jimmy getting drinks with his friends. He went out for like 1 hour, and she was mad. And she was like, "You're partying out." He was like, "I was only out for 1 hour." And then she brings up a whole bunch of other things. She brings up the fact that he had um been with his girlfriend, one of his friends, and he said, "Hey, I told you not to bring that up while we were on camera. Like I told you this in confidence." Um, she had brought up, "Oh, were you also messaging Jessica?" Different things like that. Apparently, she was a little drunk. That was mentioned. But even after that big fight, he was like, "Yeah, I'm not sure if we're gonna be together." What ended up happening though was she kind of like they had a conversation afterwards at the next morning. He was like, "Yeah, I don't know," and she like basically like kind of like fought for him a little bit more, and he said, "Okay, well, we're gonna try to make this work," and I'm gonna pause there before we get to the wedding of it all. But what did you think about that whole situation? Because that was like a pretty big blow up.
I honestly feel like Chelsea should have took some advice from Clay and been like, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
She not ready.
Mhm.
She wasn't ready. And that's okay. But if he can't go out for drinks per hour, what if he wanted to go on a with his boys on a on a guy's trip and he's gone for 3 and 4 days? You can't know his every move. So that goes back to him calling her clingy. That's
Mhm.
what it was. Could have used a different choice of words, but then you get to the point where you call it what it is. Like, hey, babe, you're being a little bit clingy. Like, maybe let's talk so I can make you more secure in what we have going on. But I feel like he was kind of giving her some additional, like, okay, let's talk. She crying. Okay.
Mhm.
we gonna get
Yeah.
over this. And then
Yeah.
something else come up. She crying again. Okay.
Mhm.
He was tired of her crying. It's kind of like, okay, sis, go work on yourself. We can still be friends, but you're not ready. And it probably had absolutely nothing to do with him. Maybe little things, how he commented on, AD or Jessica, but that
Yeah.
was because she was already had her own insecurities that had nothing to do with him. She had that prior coming to the show.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It was kind of like a hard battle. Like there was a lot of times he just couldn't win. So like one minute they were fine, the next minute she was bringing up something else, and it was. I didn't think he would say yes if they got gotten to the altar. I didn't think he'd say yes. But I am glad that he did eventually call it quits. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna skip ahead a little bit and I'm gonna bounce back to a specific event. But he did say like, yeah, no, it's not gonna happen. I don't think we're right for each other, which I think he should have done when he initially said no, but he kind of just wanted to make it work after she kind of like, in a way kind of begged to make it work. Um and then after a while though he was like, no. And this was after they had already gotten the dresses, the cake. It was not too long before the wedding. Because she was like, we're literally about to be married, like about to have the wedding soon. Um, and he called it quits. But I think it was important to do because if he would like, just wasn't important. He would have wasted her time, and at least he acknowledged that. Which is something that Clay should have done because I think he knew he was gonna say no. He said that he didn't know he was gonna say no till he was there, but I think he knew he was gonna say no for a while. So I think
I
Clay
think
should have
he knew
done the same
too.
thing Jimmy did. Yeah.
What did he say? What did he say? I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember. A day was like 3 days. What did he say? A month? Something about when she was walking down the aisle. It seemed
Oh
like
yeah,
I
like
can't remember. Let
a
me
three
not
seconds
even
was
try
three
to.
days or something like that, or 3 minutes was 3 days or something like that.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, really,
Hmm.
like cut the crap. But I'm glad again. I'm gonna stand by, even for Jimmy. I'm glad he didn't just try to go through with it and make it work because she would have made him miserable with them insecurities and all that crying and stuff.
100%.
Like
Yeah.
it was no. And then I'm
Hmm.
glad on the other side again for AD and Clay that he was able to get up there. And regardless about how we all felt about it, he got up there and was like, no, don't say yes and go through it and try to work out the kinks after you're already married. It needs to be
Hmm.
worked out before because trust and believe there's going to be some more kinks and some more kinks and some more kinks throughout a person's marriage that you're gonna have to continue to work out. So work
Hmm.
out the ones before so you could be prepared for the ones to come. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that they didn't.
I think it's important because sometimes like it seems people are like, oh, marriage is the answer to like solving the problems. I think in a way, low key, AD thought that that'd be a case too. Like, oh, we're gonna be married and like Clay will be fine, things like that. But it's like you really do have to come full and like fully aware of yourself before you hop into a marriage, not necessarily depending on someone to lift you up because that's not a way to go, I think. So the
100%.
same thing applied for Chelsea. She's like you said, she's not ready. She needs to come whole and fully
Mm-hmm.
self-aware and confident in herself. And I think within a year she's learned that a little bit more. She did acknowledge that in the reunion. So we'll talk
Did she
about that a
say
little
she
bit
went
more.
to therapy? I
Not
respect
therapy,
the
but did
fact
she?
that Clay did
Yeah, she didn't say
or
she went to
is.
therapy. Yeah, but she did say that she acknowledges that she does have insecurities, and it obviously
Mhm.
showed on the show. So that's self-awareness at least. Um, let's go to
Yeah.
Kenneth and Brittany real quick. We
I
did
don't
see
know what
start to
happened.
see. Yeah, we really just jumped. I think one we had a lack of chemistry and interest. Brittany was saying that Kenneth didn't really like, you know, I like acknowledge her very much. Now that they were back in their regular like jobs and stuff. Kenneth was on his phone all the time. He said that it was because he was at work. He was at work a lot. He's a charter school principal, so he's busy. Um, there was a point where Kenneth had woke Brittany up to cuddle, but it was like in the middle of the morning slash night, and she had was like no, and he had brought that up in their argument, or it was like a discussion, um, that well, you want me to show affection, but this was a case where you didn't want me to show affection, and then she was like, do you really think that's like the best way to go about that when I'm in the middle of my
Mhm.
sleep and you're coming home at like 1:30 in the morning? But that was when he flipped it on her. So that was when I started not to like Kenneth because of the way he kind of flipped it and used that as a way to get out of the relationship. I think at that point he knew he didn't want to be in the relationship and was just waiting for a perfect way to pull out of it. And that opened up the whole, well, Kenneth was like, well, I don't think we should be together then if this is how you feel. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I don't think
Mhm.
that was the best way to like say that because it wasn't just her. Like he was and the way he flipped it was very like it was very quick. Um And so that's when I started looking at Kenneth a little differently. I was like, ooh, okay. But yeah, you said you don't know what happened, but that's basically it. Kenneth flipped everything up.
No, I was saying like I don't know what happened in their situation. It took a turn for me. Like
Yeah.
I was like, hey.
Hmm.
So when they were on the beach and Kenneth and AD were talking, I think I told you about this when it first happened. And
Hmm.
AD said something like, in regards to Brittany raising black kids.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was like, well, dang, I wonder did that stick with him and kind of push him away from Brittany, because
Hmm.
of that comment. Not just that sole comment, but whatever else he may had, had within him,
Hmm.
and then that comment on top of that, and he start raising excuse me, thinking about her raising, biracial children. So I wonder that if that played on his mind. I don't think that comment ever came up. If it has, I don't know. I mean, came up, and if someone brought that to his attention, like, is that
Hmm.
why
No,
you
it
haven't
wasn't
heard
brought
that
up.
come up?
No, and I don't think that was it either, to be honest. I think there's a certain point where he just kind of started pulling away, and I don't think it was that topic necessarily. Um, I don't know. I could see it being that maybe, but I don't think it was necessarily that. I think there was just like a certain lack of interest there at a certain point. Um, and he just found a way to step out of the relationship without necessarily just saying, "Hey, I don't want to do it." He kind of found a loophole with her bringing up something, and he said, "Oh, because of this, well, now let's not be together then." So, it was interesting. But
And one more thing with that,
mhm,
him being a principal and he's, so busy. Okay, most working people are busy. If you
mhm,
live in the city or a popular commute area within your state, you're busy. You make time for what you want to make time for. That's great. He's, into his job. What did he say? He said his job was precious to him, but it's a job, If
mhm,
you're really trying to build something with someone, you make time with what you want to make time for. So
mhm.
I feel like that part of things. So like you knew you had your job and you knew the demands of your job before you went on the show.
Yeah, exactly. Mhm,
So stop playing, Kenneth.
mhm, yeah. Um, and then we move on to the biggest drop for me. Like this was real good TV. Jeremy and Laura. Um, Jeremy and Laura. So Jeremy meets Laura's family and her dog, and like
Hmm.
they meet. Laura brings up Sarah Ann's like messages and how Jeremy handled them, things like that to her family. Family was like vibing. They didn't mind Jeremy. Same day, into the night, into the morning, Jeremy goes out with his friends. Jeremy ends up seeing Sarah Ann, who he met in the pods at that bar or whatever, and he was out until 5 in the morning. Laura come so we see Laura come downstairs. Jeremy's sitting down in the living room. She's like, "Hey, so you were out until 5 in the morning. What's up with that?" Plot twist was Jeremy had sent his location to Laura, I guess to provide some sort of trust. But the thing was, the way he did that, I don't know, he just wasn't very smart with it. I don't know what his plan was
At all.
because he shared location, then lied about his location, even though he knew she had it after sharing it. So then he said, "Oh yeah, yeah, I did end up seeing Sarah Ann there at the bar. We just talked and to kind of like close things out or whatever." And he was like, "We just stayed in the parking lot. We didn't go anywhere else." She was like, "Oh, really?" She was like, "Because your location says you went here." And funnily enough, that's actually where Sarah Ann lives. So where were you? Like, what happened? Why did you like you want to dive in more? What I found really interesting was that when she caught him in his lie, the way she tangled it was very interesting. She didn't at first say, "I know everything." She let him like loop
Hmm.
his lies in on his own. Because at first she was like, "So you shared your location with me and you thought I was just gonna see it? I was asleep. Like, if I'm asleep, how would I just see your location?" And he was like, "Oh, well, we were in the parking lot." Da, da, da. She was like, "Interesting, because I did see your location. This is not where you were." Um, but it ended up being that they weren't just at the parking lot. He did go to Sarah Ann's house. Him and Sarah Ann say that he just dropped her off, that they didn't do anything. Um, but that ended up being a big drop in their relationship. Laura called him out. What I found really interesting about that was after she called him out on it, he said he didn't want to talk about it. And she was like, "Oh, no. Like, we're talking about it." So that's how you
Hmm.
know he was caught in a lie, because how you gonna like want to not talk about it after you got caught in your lie? And that at the end of the all, Jeremy's mom was supposed to meet Laura that day. Obviously, Laura wasn't going because they weren't really together at that point. Jeremy's mom was completely on Laura's side, even though she hadn't met her. I guess she knows her son, and it was like, yeah, because I would have been waiting on the porch for you, because like, yeah, but that was a whole mess.
And the fact that he had just had that fiance, regardless of him
Mhm.
saying that he had broken up with her right before he went on. What is right before? A week, some days, 2 weeks, a
Mhm.
month? You had a whole fiance that apparently, what, he was involved in her child's life or whatever the case may be. Was that it?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So then you get on the show, you basically fool Laura, and then you share your, it's like a, what's
It
that
didn't
show
make
used to be
sense.
called, America's Dumbest Criminals, but he not a criminal. Well, I don't know if he a criminal,
Hmm.
but I'm saying that was stupid. You gonna share your location and then lie about it, like she, like, hello.
Hmm.
And then the fact that Sarah Ann felt comfortable sitting there talking to him at her house at that time. Like, it's just so
Hmm.
many different things to that it's like, why would you do that? You still press for this man. He chose this person over here. You were not the
Hmm.
chosen one. It may hurt, it may not sit well with you, but what are you
Hmm.
doing, girl?
Yeah.
So she feel like she
Exactly.
won, but she really didn't win right now. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, that I'm glad Laura was like, no, I'm not meeting your mother. Like, bye. And
Hmm.
then, how dare you do something and try to reverse it on me and tell me you don't want to talk to me? Bye.
Hmm. Yeah.
Adios.
Yeah, he basically tried to make her seem like the villain, which is really interesting. We go to like a lake house event kind of vibe afterwards. They all meet up, like everyone, even people who didn't make it into couple. So Trevor comes back, Jessica comes back, all Sarah Ann comes back,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Um, what is really interesting, so we have Laura, she comes with no ring on. She tells the girls what happened. Jeremy,
Mm-hmm.
knowing Laura doesn't like his Hawaiian shirts, comes wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And then Jeremy was telling the guys Laura wrote nasty text to him, even though he tried to apologize and bring her flowers. She ended up talking to him. They talked to each other, and she was like, "No, you can pull the text out right now. Nothing I said was nasty to you. I was just very strict on what I was saying, nice, and I didn't want to talk to you, basically." And he didn't pull the text out. So for me, I just right now I just think like Jeremy's like a liar that
Yeah, I
just like
agree.
he likes to create stories and doesn't like to fall back on them. um Laura calls him a con artist in their conversation, and even though they talked trying to make it seem like he was trying to like get her back, he already had her stuff packed up. So when she said, "Oh no, I'm not with you anymore," he was like, "Okay, well, I already have your stuff packed up." She was like, "Oh, you already had my stuff packed up." Okay, so what was the point of this conversation?
Hmm.
um my favorite line, she said, "Go kick rocks with open-toed shoes." And and that was how they ended that conversation. So yeah, Laura and Jeremy are done. That was it. Laura, she's very strong-willed. Like she
Hmm.
cried later, like with the girls, but she was like super strong in front of him. Like she was like, "Nah, you're not about to get me." But I totally understand. Like she felt like her time was being wasted because at this point he knew if he felt like he even made a mistake, he should have been very clear in the beginning. Um, we also get in that same relationship, Sarah Ann is there. So Sarah Ann and Jeremy, before that actually, Sarah AD confronts Sarah Ann about what happened. And I thought some people were like AD should have stayed out of it, things like that. I thought it was fair to like say, like, hey girl, like, you don't think this was wrong? You don't think you doing all of this, it was worth at least bringing up? Because AD's gonna be that person to talk. Um, Sarah Ann found no wrong. Sarah Ann felt like she was being villainized. She mentioned that to Jeremy. And yeah, she just basically was like not feeling what AD had to say to her. And then we see Sarah Ann and Jeremy talk. He says he made the wrong choice. Um, and they
Of
end up
course he
jet
did.
skiing together in the daytime.
Of course
So,
he made the wrong choice because he knew Laura wasn't fooling with him. So
hmm
of course he needed to have a quote
a
unquote
backup.
somebody to fall back on. And her silly self was right there waiting for him. She had like no class about herself. I'm not
Mm-mm,
saying she owed anyone any loyalty because she just had met those women, you know,
hmm
but she didn't have any class about herself. Like, so you were okay being the fallback person, the second fiddle, you know,
Yeah.
only because Laura was like, "Fool, I ain't dealing with you."
hmm Yeah. It
So
was
she
very
settled
interesting.
for him.
hmm And then we see on that same day, this is later on in the reunion though, but they go back to this clip. Sarah Ann and Laura actually have a conversation together too. And
Mm-hmm.
Laura is basically like kind of like giving Sarah Ann advice, which is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Sarah Ann's kind of just really taking it. And so that for me is just a realization that Sarah Ann really doesn't, nothing's clicking for her on what the heck is happening and
Mm-hmm.
like what's wrong and what's not wrong, because she's just sitting there kind of taking it and asking like, I don't know. It was just very interesting. So yeah, I don't think anybody was on Sarah Ann's side, but if there ever was someone besides Jeremy, like they were also completely unaware. Um, and then we move
He's not a
into
good. He's not a good reliable backup
no,
source.
no, he's not. Um, and then we have Jessica and Jimmy. They finally talk in person. They actually come to a pretty peaceful conclusion. She's rooting for Chelsea. He does say something about like you're still my number one or something like that. That was
Oh,
weird.
I missed that.
Yeah, that was weird. But then she like Jessica looped it back like no, like take care of Chelsea. Da, 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 da. Da. I don't think he said it, but it wasn't to be flirtatious. But I don't know why he said it though. Like it was the comment,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't the way he said it. That was anyway. But it was just interesting. And then um, just Chelsea and Trevor talk. They were vibing. Chelsea did mention like their bracelets. That was something I didn't mention in pods. Chelsea, I gave him a bracelet. Like every time you tap
Oh
it,
yeah, I
it'll light up
remember
on
that.
your side or whatever. Um, and then she had talked about like, oh, we could still wear the bracelets, ha ha ha, giggle, giggle, giggle. And I'm like, Chelsea, if you're feeling a certain way about all these things in regards to Jimmy, you shouldn't even be cracking jokes about anyone
Mm-hmm.
else. And then one of the things that also created a weird argument this time, Jimmy was pressed. Chelsea said that Amy and Johnny were the strongest couple, and Jimmy didn't like that. And he was mad.
Yeah, but he had to know based off of his interaction with the person he chose
Mhm.
that wasn't too strong in that moment.
Yeah, I don't think there was like I don't know. I just don't think there's nothing wrong with realizing if there's a stronger couple out there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And Jimmy being pressed about that was very interesting. That's all. Um, but yeah, that was like that lakeside meeting thing. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
interesting drama and things unfolded. Then we move on. We already talked about Chelsea and Jimmy don't make it. Jimmy breaks up with her, says they're not ready for the altar. Um, so then we do see AD and Clay make it to the altar. Um, yeah, actually, low key, high key, I actually didn't think her makeup was that like popping as it should have been. I feel like,
AD.
yeah, I feel like her makeup,
Mm-hmm.
like her some of the eye choices could have been different. Um, and then people were mad about Clay's reaction when he saw her. He said something like, "Okay, body," and people were mad about that on the internet.
Yeah, I
'Cause they were
seen
like,
that too.
yeah, they were like, why didn't you say like, she's beautiful or something? You just said, okay, body. Um, Clay says no. Weirdly enough, AD is surprised though. And I was surprised that she was surprised. Because I feel like the signs were there. And there 'cause some people were like, well, maybe he was saying stuff off camera that made her believe that he was gonna say yes.
Mhm.
And then once again, like you said earlier, I loved how she basically just looked at them, looked at her mom and her friends, gave them a
Like,
nod.
let's roll
They
out.
they walked out together. I did love that Clay's mom helped with her dress to help her walk out.
Hmm.
Um, and it was just a big moment of solidarity. Someone did mention that hugely different from I think it was Micah from last season, how when she was told no, remember her like hater friend from season 5? I don't remember her hater friend. The friend who didn't like her, who didn't like her that she was in a that didn't like her, that she was going to be in a
I
relationship.
forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so when he said no, Micah walked away and ran off, and instead of them supporting her, they were laughing in the
I
chairs in
remember
the
that.
audience. So
I
somebody on the
remember that.
internet did note that opposition, and I was like, yeah, like you should want to go support your friends. And
Hmm.
the fact that they were laughing was interesting. We talked about that when we did the season 5 recap.
Yeah, I
And
remember that.
then Clay's mom and dad talk afterwards. What did you think about
Hmm.
that? I love that she stood her ground. Because he was
I
trying to talk
did
around
too.
himself, and she was like, no, 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 no. But you weren't good to me.
I was
So,
like, okay. And she's like, okay, we
mhm,
gonna basically stop talking about this. So she shut him down because it's basically like nothing else that you can say after that is going to matter because you weren't good to me. So we just gonna leave it at that and
mhm,
that's it.
yeah,
And I was like, I feel like from what I see, she was neutral. She supported her son, and she told him before she walked in, as a mother, you know, sh- I'm not gonna say you always support your kids because right is right and wrong is wrong, but you have
mhm,
those conversations behind closed doors. She
mhm,
supported her son. She supported AD. She didn't just let her walk away. You know, other episodes people say no, and the other side of the family just kind of be looking like, you better walk away. What you gonna do? I
mhm,
love the fact that she stood up, she embraced her, fixed her dress, went on. I love the fact that when all was said and done, she still hugged her son and showed him support. I feel like she was very neutral in there.
mhm,
She did all that while still gathering his dad. Like, don't even come with this mess because you wasn't good to me. And she did it
yeah,
all with class.
yeah, and she was very clear, like you need to
Mm-hmm.
fix this and apologize to your son. Like he's carried some
Mm-hmm.
stuff with him. Clay did mention in the reunion, he said his dad apologized in his own way, like not necessarily an
Mm-hmm.
apology, but a conversation. Um, but yeah, the way that rolled out was interesting. Clay and AD talked again afterwards, but it was very clear she was probably not gonna continue on afterwards.
Right.
And they didn't. So they're not together now, as we know from the reunion. And then we get Amy and Johnny. Super wholesome once again, just really wholesome. They're just vibing. Um, Amy and Johnny's family's really sweet. Amy wanted Johnny's sister to come and like be there while she got ready. Amy's dad was super welcoming, gave her a hug, like we're already ready to blend the families together. When they after they got married, they both said yes. Then after they got married, they were just really cute and goofy together, just kind of like I said, vibing. I did really like Amy's kind of like she said she wanted to go for princess style, and it was very obvious with like she had the tiara and stuff, so that was really cool too. Yeah. And then sorry y'all, something happened in the background. Um, and then we're gonna go to the reunion. Um, there are a lot of things that happen in the reunion. I I'm actually very happy that it out like rolled out the way it was supposed to. Um, in the past, and I know a lot of people can agree with this because I've seen this pop up on the internet, Vanessa and Nick have not been the best interviewers. They let a lot of things slide and slip. I know, especially last season, it was just like these are the questions y'all asked. Y'all let this go.
Mhm.
Y'all didn't like, um, really dig in on this person here, et cetera, et cetera. As things start coming out about people, as the season starts airing, which is exactly what happened this season. A lot of things start coming out, and then by the time the reunion happens, they finally this season ask the questions that people wanted to know. So I think they did a great job this time compared to last time. Last previous seasons. It just hasn't been that great. Like last reunion was bad, and I think maybe they were like, okay, we need to get our stuff together. So lots of things were revealed this season because of the internet revealed them. Um, so we talked about Jeremy. Jeremy was engaged before Love is Blind. Apparently, he said that it was no secret though. He said he had them, told Laura, etc. Him and Sarah Ann are still together about a year now. Chelsea did know. She said though, she was like, they're apparently whenever I see them, they're not together or they are together. So apparently they have been off on and off for the past year, but they now live together. What did you think about that whole rollout with Sarah Ann and Jeremy? And they brought Laura in on Zoom.
Hmm. Well, I'm very grateful for Chelsea minding their business. To let us
Yeah.
all know that
Yeah.
they be having they off and ons again because they kind of came out like the perfect, like, oh, we're doing good, and Chelsea like, hold up, nope.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then that's what made them say, well, we had some kinks and think, okay, but y'all only said that because Chelsea said that.
Hmm.
I'm glad Laura came on and spoke her piece. What did she call? She called him a clown, but what did she
Hmm.
say? Both of them was clowns. She said both
Yeah,
of them.
she said both of them are clowns.
She did. So hey, I have no objection to that. It wouldn't have been so bad, but I feel like Sarah Ann was sneaky in when Laura said, it's like you were coming to me about advice with my fiance. It's like she kind of
Hmm.
was sneaky about it, but Laura peeped it, but
Hmm.
she was still sneaky about it. So
Hmm.
I'm glad Laura came, even though she wasn't able to physically be there. I'm glad she was able to come on and speak her piece, and I feel like she just dodged a bullet,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
honestly.
I don't think Sarah Ann and Jeremy will make it, quite honestly. I think the way relationships start is usually a tell of how they're gonna end. So, it was very rocky. It started on a lot of like lack of trust. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
And then we had Trevor. It
Oh
was
gosh, I've
revealed
been waiting for this.
it was revealed through the internet. Trevor's ex-girlfriend had came out of the woodworks and was like, "Oh, actually, Trevor and I were together during Love is Blind." And everyone was like, Trevor's now one of the enemies too, because everybody like you said, like I like Trevor. Trevor seemed like a chill dude. And then
Mhm.
plot twist. What I loved was Vanessa and Nick did not let it slide. I think they, in the way people said this
Mhm.
too, they used Trevor as an example because this has been happening a bit where people use Love as Blind as a way to get famous or get more followers and et cetera, instead of actually trying to find love. And that's what it seemed like Trevor was doing. They immediately, without, they just brought it up without even letting him really speak first. They were like, oh, we have text messages. Bam, read the text messages and then was like, okay, Trevor,
He was
thoughts,
like,
and he was just he had no
uh,
thoughts. He
can
was
I leave?
unprepared. Yeah, literally. But what did you think about that? Because that was
I was actually shocked because if that girlfriend came up on the internet. I miss that, but I'm not on social media a whole
Exactly.
bunch either. I kind of peek, jump in, scroll a little,
Mhm.
pop out. That's
It was
it.
more on Twitter and
Oh, and I
TikTok.
don't have Twitter.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
So I was surprised. That was a shocking moment for me because I was like, Team Trevor, Trevor, you're going to find your boo. Don't
Mhm.
trip, things like that. So when that came out, I was looking at the TV like, wow. And for him to be like, well, I love you and I'm going to marry you and all of that. But then I'm thinking like, at first, okay, so he sent this to her after he left Love is Blind.
Mhm.
Like maybe he felt like that, so he had something to fall back on. But when they
Mhm.
said he said that to her before he
Mhm.
got to the show, I was like, now wait a minute. So
Yeah.
you in the pods, not saying he couldn't have, kind of felt Chelsea a little bit or something like that, but you sitting here telling this other woman all of this stuff. So now you playing with two people. Then when Chelsea chose Jimmy, he's like, well, if I would have asked you first, would you have
Mhm.
said this? Just a week or two or however long they were there, you literally was just telling somebody else. So now you're playing with two women. So I hope the ex-girlfriend is
Mhm.
done with him.
Well,
And then I'm
she is,
thinking,
but the thing is, I don't know if you caught this, but the ex-girlfriend knew he was going on Love is Blind. She was
yeah,
okay with
that's what I
him.
was just about to say. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, how do you accept somebody saying, I'm not saying he couldn't love her,
Mhm.
because what there's different levels of love.
Mhm.
But him saying I'm gonna marry you, but hey, I gotta turn my phone off because I'm about to go find somebody else.
Mhm.
I'm confused. So I'm just like, and then I then as these different dating reality shows pass by, I mean, continuously come out in season after season. I'm like, dang,
Mhm.
you got these people on there that's trying to promote and do all of this and on there for the wrong reasons. But what
Mhm.
about the people in the world? Because it's even, of course, dating shows out of the United States that actually really want and are hopeful to find someone, and they don't get picked because this person, had the mouthpiece to speak their way through the interviews, but
Mhm.
really they don't have good intentions.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate. Listen, Trevor had me fooled, and not too
Mhm.
many people can
A
have
lot of
me
people.
fooled. Trevor had me mad at Chelsea. Okay,
Yeah, no, that was the most interesting twist. It was slowly getting revealed on the internet, and I'm so glad they brought it up on Love is Blind because I thought they were gonna like possibly let it slide. And especially when they brought the messages, that's when I knew they weren't playing around. Um, and
wait, one
then
more thing. One more
mhm,
thing.
mhm,
I feel like Trevor should have set his posterior there the whole reunion or however long. Well, yeah, because they let everybody sit there the whole reunion. They
mhm,
didn't make the single people leave. He should have
yeah,
set his butt there the whole reunion, just like everybody else did. Everybody else had uncomfortable conversations, including Sarah Ann.
mhm,
And Clay is not the biggest fan for a lot of people. Trevor should have set his butt there on stage. When the seat get hot, you don't jump up like it. Nothing is private anymore.
mhm,
A text message, people get mad. Obviously the ex-girlfriend got mad. She sent it, to
mhm,
whoever, she exposed it for all of us to see. He should
mhm,
have set himself there. I hope he's
yeah,
somewhere mad right now that he didn't sit there and let, to continue to speak his side, whatever that was.
yeah,
That's what I gotta say about Trevor. You disappoint
y-
me.
yeah. It was interesting. We get a reveal that AD and Clay are pretty cordial. They didn't talk for a while after the almost wedding. But what I didn't appreciate was I mean I get it he wanted to explain his feelings, but knowing where she stood was I didn't think he should have said that. But he called her the love of his life. He said that he regretted not saying yes. But it was very obvious AD was like hurt from that experience and she was not sure to try again because she was hurt. But he had said he had made a mistake. So yeah.
So I'm just gonna say this. I really hope that AD finds her person, and I hope that AD finds someone that pours into her as much as she is willing to pour into them.
Hmm.
And not saying that with therapy and Clay tapping into himself that it wouldn't be him, but I hope that it's not. him.
Mm.
He may be, gathering himself and preparing himself to be the man for someone else. I don't think it's for AD. I think AD deserves far more than what Clay can offer, even the healed version of Clay.
Yeah, I agree. People were had some theories that, ooh, is she gonna get back together with him afterwards? I don't think so. Hopefully not. She did mention though that she did go on a date with Matthew after
Oh
all of
gosh,
that
I saw
happened.
that. He
And
made chicken and rice.
chicken and rice apparently, no veggies. And he Matthew denied going to the reunion. He didn't want to go. Apparently they had offered. He said he didn't want to go. So he can explain the situation a bit further. I am curious why she still decided to go on a date with him after all that happened with
I just
him
feel like she got a good heart, you know?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, she it and possibly she wanted to hear his side of the story. Kind of like, dude, why are you telling
Hmm.
me and the other Amber the same dang on lines? You know,
Hmm.
kind of just like let me hear it, whether I believe you or not. Like, just let me hear it. And then, like she
Hmm.
said, then you know, open again. Let's hang out. Okay, maybe you're a cool associate, but not for me. I was surprised too, but I don't
Yeah.
see it being out of her character from what I see about her.
Yeah, that's fair. And but she did say though that they weren't on the same like living style, which we knew from seeing his side of things from the pods. But she
Mhm.
found out for herself, after going on a few dates with him, like he was just really like strict on certain things about
Yeah, he
very
would have drove her
particular,
crazy.
yeah, very
Yeah.
particular on his lifestyle. We found out Brittany and Kenneth are actually really good friends and apparently talk like almost every day, which I found very interesting that they left off on a good note and are like really good friends apparently. What did you think about
I didn't
that?
expect that either. I didn't
Okay.
expect that either. That's good because, possibly they can bring something to one another's lives. And, you meet people and you don't know what their purpose is in your life. I didn't see that coming, but I'm glad. I actually like Brittany. I don't dislike
Yeah.
Kenneth, but I like
Mhm.
Brittany.
Yeah,
So that's
same.
good for them.
Yeah. Johnny and Amy are happy. There were no notes from them as always. They were basically just saying, as I said earlier, like they're still figuring like having conversations, things like that. To figure they're on a good note. They have their little recap like they usually do for all the reunions, like a life recap, and it was really cute, them with their families and stuff. So nothing new there. Jimmy and Chelsea are still not together. I assume so. But they're cordial. They seem to still get along. Because they were sitting like
Mhm.
so close to each other at times where I was like, are they still together? But no,
Yeah,
apparently
I
they
thought
just
that too.
yeah, but they're apparently just cordial, just like get along. Um, Chelsea did reveal to him and Chelsea revealing that him and his friend were together at one point. He did say that that's what did it for him. But he still tried to make it work. So once again, like I said, he should have ended earlier. He thought about it, but really tried to give it a chance. Plot twist is that Jessica and Chelsea are actually very close friends. So much
Hmm.
so that Jessica's daughter calls her Aunt Chelsea. But Jimmy and Jessica are not friends, apparently.
Right, I see that too. I think that's good. I feel like that's how Sarah Ann and I feel like that's how Sarah Ann and Laura possibly could have been good friends if she would have handled it right.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica could have took the route like, oh, she's very pretty,
Mm-hmm.
she is.
Mm-hmm.
So she could have said, oh, well, let me see if I can get him, back or whatever. She
Mm-hmm.
didn't do that. She
Mm-hmm.
took it. She obviously went through her healing process for it. She built this relationship for Chelsea to the fact where she would felt comfortable introducing her daughter to Chelsea. So be it. That was the way to handle things. Or just handle it on your own. You don't have to necessarily create a friendship, with anyone, but that was the way to handle things.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like Jimmy definitely dodged a bullet. I stand by. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think Chelsea's ready. It's nothing wrong with that. She just obviously needs some healing, some self healing.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I agree.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't think it would have been right for them to be together. I think they would have been broken up by the time a reunion came around anyways.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Um, what I did love about this reunion as we start kind of wrapping up was that they did bring the like past couples back to return and like
Hmm.
sit and watch. I immediately was curious why Lauren and Cameron weren't there, but I knew because I follow them. I've been following them since season one.
Mhm.
I knew that they're not about the drama of it all. Like even when they
Mhm.
had their reunion season, they weren't all about the drama when that was happening. They would just kind of sit there and kind of like hold their own, and
Mhm.
not try to be in the business. So, outside of the reunion, Cameron did mention like, oh, hey, well, we saw the season. It didn't really seem 100% genuine with these couples this time around. We didn't necessarily want to be involved in that. We've been doing it for the past few seasons, 4 seasons.
Mhm.
And we wanted to just also kind of like take that step back. So he was like, we don't got no beef with Love is Blind. Love is Blind got us together. Love is Blind would help me get my platform. But no, we were not there for these reasons. So I thought that was a good note. But we did get to see Brett and Tiffany. They're my second favorite couple of all time for Love is Blind. I love Brett and Tiffany. You don't like Brett and Tiffany?
I can't remember who
The two
they are.
people.
Oh, Brett and yes, I
Yeah.
like them. I also like what's Kwame and what's
And
his
Chelsea.
wife
I
Chelsea.
the fact that they're still together actually surprises me. But I
It
go off though.
surprised me too, but I like them.
Yeah.
I like her. I don't know.
Mhm.
I like her. Um, Brett and Tiffany. I like. You know who else I like? What was his Blaze? What was the pregnant one that's not there?
Oh, that's not there?
Yeah. What's
Oh,
her name?
yes. I know who you're
Remember
talking
he
about.
didn't pick her at first. He's the
Bliss.
lawyer dude.
Bliss?
Bliss. What do I call her? Blade.
Blade.
Oh gosh,
I
Bliss.
can't think of his name,
Bliss.
but Bliss. Yeah.
I can't think of his name either. At first, I did not. I was like, "Oh, they are not about to get married," because he didn't choose her
Yeah.
at first, and then he tried to come back around and choose her. But I'm
But
really
it worked
glad
out.
that I see them pop up sometime. I'm really glad
Mhm.
that it worked out for them in a
Mhm.
genuine way. It's not like Bliss did some digging or anything of that sort.
Yeah. And then we also had Alexa and Brennan. They came. Alexa's also pregnant. Um, and then we had a couple that wasn't really put on spot for Love is Blind, like on the screen. We didn't see them develop as a couple, but because sometimes they do that where, oh, there was a couple who got together, but we didn't put them on the show. Matt
Hmm.
and Colleen was their names. We don't know them like that though because their relationship wasn't shown on screen. They came,
Hmm.
and then we also saw Micah return, Izzy return, and Gigi return. Gigi's also pregnant with her boyfriend, who was not on Love Is Blind. So it was just really
Hmm.
interesting to see. My favorite thing, Kwame's reactions, seeing his reactions to everything going down, was funny to me. And when they showed his reactions, um, and I love that, they weren't afraid to tell their piece when they were asked and stuff. At
Hmm.
the end of the day, I like that Jessica stepped in on conversations and also owned up to certain things that she did wrong. Yes, even though
Hmm.
she didn't pull a Sarah Ann, there were still comments that were said in the beginning that were Sarah Ann-ish, and she admitted that that was wrong. Um, and then she called Sarah Ann out on her stuff. But overall, I thought it was a good reunion. We got an hour and 30 minutes.
I think so too. Yeah, I agree, and it was nice for me to see some of the returning couples. Now, the girl that's pregnant, what's her name? Gigi with the
Mhm.
boyfriend that was. Why did they bring her back?
I guess maybe I feel like they probably just ask different people, especially specifically people. It seems like they ask people who have made an impact in previous seasons, even if they
Oh,
had a
okay.
couplage or not. Because even like Micah, people talked about Micah a lot.
Hmm.
Even though she didn't end up with anybody. Izzy was talked about a lot, even though he didn't end up with anybody. So I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure they just probably asked people who people would want to see on camera. Matt and Colleen probably were asked as a couple, but nobody really knows who they are once again because they weren't put on their season.
Well, I'm interested to see. I've never seen the show Perfect Match. I've never watched it, so maybe I need to watch season one so I could kind of be caught up. The only show
Mm.
I watch by them is what's that show that they had another dating show? I don't think it comes on anymore. Were they over Marriage Boot Camp? They were, huh?
Oh, you might be right about that.
Yeah, I think that was
Yeah.
it. But that was like so long. Love is Blind is the only reality dating show that I watch
Mhm.
now because Marriage Boot Camp, after like so many seasons, then it went to hip hop edition, this, and it. I don't know, reality
Mm.
TV, some shows I just can't watch no more, to
Yeah.
each his own. So I think they were over that too, but I haven't seen Perfect Match, but
Mhm.
I guess. in
Yeah.
time I'll look at season one, so I'll be prepared for season two.
Yeah, Micah, Jessica, and Izzy will be on Perfect Match. So I don't know. We'll see. I For me, it's hard to get into the into them. Love is Blind, I still watch because I feel like season one was so strong that
Yeah,
especially with
with
Lauren and
Cameron
Cameron.
and Lauren.
So
Hmm.
I still watch, but we start to see it kind of fall off a little bit more and more. Like we saw only two out of the five couples actually went to the altar in the first place.
Hmm.
Most of the men were like trash, like they were doing things they were shouldn't have been doing on a show that was supposed to be
Yeah,
about marriage. So we shall see. But that's the recap for season six. We'll see how season seven rolls out and if the casting people actually did their job. So Chelsea works at Love is Blind now as a casting person. Not Chelsea season six Chelsea who's with Kwame
Kwame's
Chelsea.
Chelsea.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So like girl, you gotta do better this season or something. Cause season six was a little rough with people who didn't necessarily put their all into trying with the relationships. But
Right.
that's our season six recap. Let us know what you thought about Love is Blind in the comments. You could message me on Instagram or I'll definitely share information about the recaps on TikTok. So definitely respond in the comments there. Thank you, Mom, for coming on and talking about Love is Blind with me.
You're welcome.
um, for listeners out there, make sure you follow at KaVonna on Instagram to catch updates, as well as at the Introvert Social Hour on TikTok to catch updates on what is happening, what episodes are dropping next. Get some sunshine, get some air, have an amazing week, and I will see you next week on the Introvert Social Hour. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye.